All-inclusive food and drinks at Busch Stadium had us wondering, what if everything was all-inclusive? Cardinals all-inclusive tickets are on sale now. Go to cardinals.com for more information.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's us. Welcome.
Don't you hate when that happens, when you get cookie on your shirt?
Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst. Hey, it's the Randy Karraker Show featuring Brooke Grimsley. Matthew Rocchio, not here, but here. Matthew, say something to us.
If you're with us, show yourself.
Hello.
There he is.
Hi, everybody. How's it going?
It's like we conjured
Okay,
you.
so
we
Matthew,
use a Ouija board to bring you to life.
Yeah, we need
Right
you to
the
know
ball.
that Sports Hub STL is presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Okay, I got to hear Matthew Rocchio's story. Why aren't you here?
So yesterday I put my keys in my jacket, and then we went to the Easter festivities with my girlfriend's family, and I left my jacket in her car because the temperature was fluctuating. And this morning I did not get my jacket and therefore my car keys out of the car before she went off to go deal with her adult life. And so I do not have my car keys, but luckily with the magic of technology, I can still produce the show today. Thanks to Wilson and Joe for doing the technical stuff back at the station.
Wow.
Matthew, I got to tell you, that's totally a Randy Karraker thing. I can totally relate, brother. So.
Oh, no. You guys don't have spare keys just waiting somewhere in your house?
I do. Yeah. Where's your spare key?
I have a spare key, but it's in the possession of my brother because the spare key for me is more of if I lock my keys in my car, somebody can then come to me with the spare key. They don't have to go to my house, find the spare key, and then bring it to me. They have my spare key somewhere in their possession at their house, so they can bring me my spare key if I lock my keys in the car, which is a much more likely scenario than essentially locking my keys in someone else's car.
I feel like this is a scenario that you might have had to go through a couple of times to figure out which was the best option of where to hide your spare keys, is what I'm gathering here.
Yeah. So,
yeah, you never want to call the locksmith. Calling your friend and telling him that you're an idiot, or calling your significant other and telling her what she already knows, which is you're an idiot, that's much easier than the locksmith.
Hey, whatever works.
Great to have Matthew with us. Great to have Wilson here. The Cardinals, here's good news for Mets fans. Last time the Cardinals were swept in New York, 1986. You know what happened in 1986? The Mets won the World Series.
Oh, so you're saying that's what's going to happen to the Mets.
Just throwing out that possibility. How about this, Brooke? The Cardinals have scored 65 runs in 12 home games, 5.3 runs a game at home. They have scored 39 runs in 10 road games, in which they're 1-9, by the way. And that's 3.9 runs a game on the road. Home ERA, 2.59. After yesterday's 7-4 loss to the Mets, the Cardinals' road ERA is 6.32.
Oh, ouch. It's not great. And if we can bring up that stat that Randy, you put this out on social media too. This is not just a one season deal, because we always talk about it being early. It's very early into the season, Randy. Yeah. Have patience, everybody. Just because you're 1-9 on the road right now, have patience. But this tweet that you put out on X yesterday, I think points to something more than this being just a one season issue for the Cardinals.
Yeah, 45-36 at home, on the road, 45-36 both at home and on the road back in 2021 when Mike Schultz was the manager. 11 games of the 17-game winning streak were road games. So even in September, when the chips were down and the pressure was on, the Cardinals were playing well on the road. They exhibited mental toughness. They found ways to win games. That's the last time the Cardinals had a winning road record. Even when they won 93 games in Oli Marmol's first year, they were 40-41 on the road. And I don't know if that is a matter of the level of mental toughness that he transmits to his players, because I don't think he had to do that. And maybe that was just a product of Albert and Yachty in that going 40-41 and winning the 93 games. I just think that when you're a young team, one of the things you have to learn is the ability to deal with the adversity that comes with a hostile environment, which the Cardinals were in this weekend.
That's the thing that I don't understand, is what exactly is the disconnect, why it's not transferring the success that we see at home with the Cardinals and right now this season as opposed to on the road. And look, got to give the Mets a lot of credit. Even Ole Marmol said that in the post game. You're going against a really tough lineup over there. I mean, it was definitely a tale of two very different teams. One in terms of money and payroll, of course, but also a tale of two teams of power and kind of the haves and have-nots.
Right.
The Cardinals really don't have much power this season versus that Mets lineup, which is just absolutely loaded. And you saw that showcase. So I will give the Mets credit. They by far, and I'll even said that, were the better team. And so, of course, you take that into account to the road record. But what is it about these past few seasons that is leading to this issue on the road? I saw some people on social media saying last night, too, that Ollie should have, found a way to get himself thrown out of the game. We saw that last season where he would do things to kind of invoke some emotion from his group and get the group fired up. What can he even do at this point? Because I don't doubt that they're preparing, but why is it just not transferring over to the road?
There's an array of different things. One of them might be that the other teams are just better right now, more talented, more experienced talent. There's also the possibility, and we're not on the road, we don't know, but I can tell you, having been on road with Major League Baseball teams in the past, those guys are many times nocturnal animals that spend a lot of time. They finish a game and they go out on the town. You're in a city like New York or Boston,
fun,
or
exciting.
Everybody says Pittsburgh is sneaky great. Maybe young players who have a tendency to go out and have a good time, maybe they're going out and having a good time and they aren't as prepared. I don't know if it's a possibility. I'm not saying this is happening, but it certainly has happened with baseball teams in the past, even veteran guys in the past. So possibility, but then the other part of it, Brooke, might just be that reality is catching up with this group. We mentioned the lack of pitching and the lack of offense. The lack of offense is staggering. Jordan Walker's last 12 games, 2 weeks, 156 batting average, 400 OPS. Victor Scott II, last 11 games, 194 batting average, 515 OPS. Walker's slash line in the last week, 125, 125, 167. Scott's slash line in the last week, 118, 211, 118. And those aren't the only two guys that are struggling.
No.
Nolan Gorman has been bad since he returned, slash line of 105, 217, 158. So a lot of these players that got off to really good starts are kind of coming back to earth too.
And that's what we were talking about when you're looking at the difference between these two teams, one payroll, but also that was just a better club that they face in the Mets. I mean, the top of their batting order, you have Lindor, you have Soto, you have Alonso, and they were just absolutely unstoppable. The Mets' top three hitters, so I just mentioned there, Lindor, Soto, and Alonso, were combined 16 of 46, so a 348 average with 3 homers and 11 RBIs in the 4-game series. They absolutely are just a powerful group. And to your point, that's something that is concerning me right now, is where does the power come from? And if that's not an answer this season, which you are still giving these young players runway, you're trying to see who they are and to evaluate things. But at the end of the day, as we're seeing when you face the Mets, when you're facing other teams in the league, you have to have power. And where is that power coming from? Even Alec Burleson, it's like the power has been zapped from his bat. Of course, he's getting very limited opportunities, but he was the only guy returning to your team this season who had 20-plus home runs last year.
Yeah, it's bewildering, really, that the people that have the skill set, right? It wasn't just the Cardinals that were saying these guys have ability. It was kind of universal in baseball, and it's just not happening. Now, I say this with full knowledge that 50% of all of the great prospects wash out. They don't wind up being great, right?
Yes.
It looks like the Cardinals are on the bad end of a lot of this.
And that's where it goes back to the evaluation process, doesn't it? That's where it goes back to, is the evaluation process with the Cardinals, which is something that we've talked about, even on the catching front. Ooh, controversial subject there. Sorry to bring that back up. But even on the catching front, because something you have to look at here soon. So Mason Wynn will be returning this week. He's expected to return with the squad on Tuesday. He was able to do his rehab assignment this past weekend, and he looked just fine. I know it wasn't a great day at the plate yesterday, but it was right before that. So you have Mason Wynn coming back. Herrera's coming back here soon. I'm assuming that Herrera could turn into your primary DH. Would that be safe to assume?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
now,
and I didn't realize this statistic, but we got this statistic from one of our superb viewers. It was Bill Downton, one of only 2 teams with no homers out of the DH spot. So maybe you do put And so if you do put Herrera as the DH, do you keep Pozo here?
That's the issue, right? Because Herrera, do you think that they already have passed on him being a even part-time catcher for this organization?
Brooke, he's 0 for 7 throwing out base runners. And I wonder if it'll only get worse. You saw Milwaukee stole 9 bases yesterday.
Yeah.
Once teams smell blood in the water, they're gonna go for it. And I have to believe that other teams in our division will recognize that he's not doing a good job of throwing out runners, and we'll take advantage of that.
That goes back to the evaluation process.
Totally,
I mean, I'm
yeah.
telling you guys, for a long time in this organization, we heard nothing but Herrera. Really, there was more concern about his bat rather than his arm. And now we get here to this point, and his arm is a huge concern. And so now it's almost like you're having a plethora of DHs, but then nobody's really producing as a good DH for you in the squad right now. I think Nolan Gorman is another one that I keep seeing comments about. What's going to happen with Nolan Gorman? What do you do with Nolan Gorman?
See, and I think last week at this time, as you know, Brooke, I said that Saggese probably goes back, but with that Gorman, since he returned, 105, 217, 158, did not get a minor league rehab stint like Mason Wynn, who hit a couple of home runs yesterday. Maybe your logical play is to send Gorman down and keep Saggese around until Gorman can get straightened out.
And I hate that. I hate that for Nolan Gorman, because the whole point of this season, as we talked about, is letting these young players, you got to figure them out, because if they are going to dip their toes into free agency, which I don't know what Chaim Bloom's philosophy is going to be on that. All I know is what the ownership said is that payroll is going to go down. It's not like all of a sudden they're planning on spiking it, unless you've heard otherwise. Nope. I haven't heard otherwise. So then you're going to have to go get some power.
About spiking payroll. So 1 million fans lost between 22 and 25 in 3 years, 23, 24, 25. They're planning on having 1 million fewer fans than they had at the end of 22. At an average of $50 a fan, $50 million less than they had in 2022. That's from ticket sales.
Wow.
Now, add in the $20 million, $18 million loss from TV revenue, that's $68 million. I'm just pointing out that there's not going to be a spike in payroll.
So basically what he's saying is take the ownership's word on this one. When they're saying that payroll is going down, it's going to go down and it's going to stay down, because everything is in flux right now.
And I think now, we've talked about evaluation of major league players. Well, it's not a bad thing to evaluate Saggese. And I don't know where he plays ultimately at the major league level, but maybe the Cardinals would be better off to evaluate the potentially good right-handed hitter than the potentially good left-handed hitter.
Yeah.
Because they are so left-handed heavy.
Well, and especially when we're talking about Jordan Walker and you're not exactly sure what he's going to be and what he's going to become. It kind of looked like just this past weekend. Did it look like to you that Jordan Walker kind of went back to some of his bad habits of what we've seen before at the plate?
Yeah, but then Nimmo, how much different is this if Nimmo doesn't make that unbelievable catch?
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. That was. But I'm with you. I think with Thomas Saggese, this is an evaluation season. You're trying to figure out what you have with these young players. So I'm going to bang the drum, just like I did with Victor Scott II during spring training. Thomas Saggese needs to stay here. They do not need to send him down when Mason Wynn returns. I mean, during that 4-game series against the Mets, Saggese went 4 for 12, so 333 average with 2 RBIs. And since April 4th, since he's been with the squad, he has a batting average of 400 right now. Let the young guys play. If that's the point of the season, then Thomas Saggese needs to stay here. And you can make a role for him if you send Nolan Gorman down, if you send Siani down. Do you even see that happening, of where they would send Siani down? I know that people were asking, and we were discussing this last week, who are you sending down? Are you sending down Siani? I've seen Baker being brought up, by the way, but they're so lefty heavy right now that they need that right-handed bat off the bench who does not need to play every single day. Maybe
at some point management takes over and says, look, Ollie, we know you love Siani, but we can't do it.
You got to break up with him at a certain point.
So can I say something here that's not sports related? I just noticed.
I'm scared.
Okay, so
you were looking at my outfit, so I feel like this is outfit related.
Here's it is. That's great, because I'm not the most observant guy. I would not be a good FBI informant, because if they say, what were they wearing? I say, I have no idea. I don't know. But here's the thing. Last week, one day, Brooke and I were wearing basically the same thing. We had white shirt, black pants. And then today she's got kind of pink and white, And I've got pink, and we're black.
This is pink. This is not pink.
What is that?
That's literally cream and white.
Oh, you're talking to the colorblind guy.
I know. And so you thought that we were both wearing the same color.
I did. Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is cream and white. Wilson, can you attest to this?
Okay.
It's cream and white.
Okay.
It's okay.
It's got a little pinkish. See, you're talking to the colorblind guy.
You see, sometimes we do match though, just about every single day.
Yeah.
And you talked about being observant. At least you knew that I was pregnant. It was so funny because I haven't seen Andy Strickland in so long, and not putting Andy like under the bus. This was a compliment to me. He was like, "So he was like, you had the baby, right?" And I'm like, no, it's sitting here right in my stomach.
Yeah,
I'm like 1 week away from being 9 months pregnant at this point. So I took that as a compliment.
So Adam Taylor says, Randy, I need to know if you had your carrot cake on Easter. I made 2 of them. Do you want me to? And I have. We only had 1. So would you like me to bring in a carrot cake?
Oh yeah,
tomorrow? Okay.
100%.
We're doing it tomorrow. Okay, good. First 4-game sweep by the Mets over the Cards since 1986. Yeah, they're going to win the World Series. Goldie hitting .361 for the Yankees with 30 hits. Pretty good $12 million investment. Yeah, he's a much better fit there than he is here. He's a better fit in that ballpark. He's a better fit in that environment. Obviously, the Yankees have a ton of people there that can help him. And I think when you get into a lineup like that, you're just going to see better pitches.
Yeah. And he's also not the star of the squad.
Yeah.
Like he's not the star of the squad. I think another good thing or a good point about this weekend is what happens with the bullpen. Ryan Fernandez. What a weekend for Ryan Fernandez. Ooh, that was a rough one, was it? So he has 11.25 ERA right now. Do you bring up Riley O'Brien, who, by the way, pitched the other day? He's now racked up 14 strikeouts in his last 7 innings. So is he an option for this team? Or is there a reason why maybe they're waiting a little bit with Riley O'Brien because of his injury history?
It might be, but now we're a month into the season. So I think, almost a month, right? And he's had the opportunity after only pitching 2 or 3 times in spring training. He should be about ready now, having pitched in games. O'Brien should. And Ryan Fernandez still has the stuff, but he's got to get straightened out. And maybe the best thing to do is to try to get him straightened out down there and continue the evaluation process. The Memphis shuttle should be going all year long. And Riley O'Brien is one guy, even though he's 30 years old, that I believe the Cardinals should evaluate because he does have that swing and miss stuff that we talk about that's missing.
Yeah, you need that. And with Ryan Fernandez, he had a great season last year, but now you're starting to see the wheels fall off a little bit.
Right. And
not just a little bit, a lot of it. A lot of it.
He's he's hard to figure out. And sometimes you start to, as a young player, young pitcher, you start to spiral downward and you start to think, and rather than just reacting, you start to think about what you're doing. And then when you start to think, you get a little bit tentative. And I feel like that's where he is. He doesn't look like there's a ton of conviction in the pitches that he's throwing.
Loss of confidence in his pitches. And so sometimes you have to go back down to the minors and figure it out. Now, when you looked at this past weekend too, a lot of people had some issues. Maybe they had some issues with Ollie Marmol's comment. Did you see that about Ryan Fernandez? Was that Friday's game where he put in Fernandez, where he could have gone to Helsley for a save situation possibly?
Yes.
And a lot of people were upset about that. But to Ollie's point, there's not many other high leverage arms that you have in your pen currently right now.
Right. And here's the thing. When you are on the road, so when you're at home, you get to the 9th inning, there's no save situation. You can only win a game on a walk-off.
Yeah.
But when you're on the road, you can get a lead and you can save the game. And so you preserve your closer until you don't have anybody else. And then you use your closer, even if it's in a tie game. And there was there were fans who were upset because he had used Helsley the week before in Pittsburgh in a tie game. It was in the 11th inning. I think Helsley was the 5th reliever that he had used. Matz had thrown an inning in
different
a third.
Situation. It was extras.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Matz did come on after throwing an inning in a third. And then and they didn't want to use Roycroft, and Roycroft wound up losing the game. They were already set to send Roycroft down. In this situation, I have no problem with using your closer to close.
Yeah.
Now, there were people that were coming up with other situations, but in thinking of the move itself, if a manager puts on his leather bracelet, which they all should do, with the engraving WWWD. What would Whitey do? Whitey would have saved his closer towards the end of his career, like Worrell. He would have saved his closer until the 9th. Now, if it's Bruce Sutter, he's bringing him in the 7th. It's a little bit different situation. But let's go with Tony. Tony is always going to save Dennis Eckersley or Jason Isringhausen or Jason Mott or whatever. He's going to save that guy until the save situation is alive and well.
Joseph says, why can't Helsley pitch 2 innings in that game? He's done it before.
Well, he has, and then he's been an abject failure after that and got hurt. He is conditioned, and you might hate to hear this, but it's a fact. He's conditioned to go 1 inning.
It's true. It is. And that's the situation that you've seen with Ryan Helsley. I think this is a really interesting.
I have a question about the criticism.
Yes.
I just weren't we doing okay? So like at the very beginning of the season, weren't we doing this whole thing where everyone was mad because they used Helsley in the top of the 9th in a tie game against the middle of the order and not in a save situation, and it worked both times to get the middle of the order out and to extend the game. But then the Cardinals lost in extras, and so people were ticked off that Helsley wasn't used, or Helsley was used. And so now we're in a similar situation. I know it's not exactly commiserate, but we're in a similar situation, and everyone's mad that they stuck to their guns, that they did the opposite, which is what people wanted them to do at the beginning of the season. So I'm a little bit confused about the criticism here from fans.
Well, I think, Matthew, there's such a dramatic difference between the 9th inning at home and the 9th inning on the road if you're in a tie game, because you are never going to have a save situation once you get to the 9th inning of a tie game at home, right? You can only win on a walk-off. So you don't want to have that game that Buck Showalter had in the playoffs where you never use your closer. Remember when he had the lefty Zach Britton, and he never used him and has never lived it down? So that series was at home, and they did use Helsley in the 9th, but that's when you should use him. There are different times, home and road, to use your closer. And ultimately, one of the reasons that a guy like Ryan Helsley had the 50 saves last year is because he was preserved for save situations on the road. And
it kept him healthy.
Yeah.
You know, that's the big thing, is that you have to keep him healthy, because as we've seen, what we were discussing with Ryan Fernandez, who has 11.25 ERA, that you need some relief. You need to preserve these guys because they clearly don't have many high leverage options to go to right now in the pen.
And especially because you don't have Mats.
Yeah.
By the way, the Cardinals, in a shocking development, have already removed the 6-man rotation.
I know. I forgot it. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because there's so many things that happened this weekend that I forgot that happened. Yeah. So that's changed, by the way. I don't know if you saw that, where they've backed off of those comments a little bit. That was interesting. So what did you make of that? Were you surprised?
No, I'm not surprised by anything.
No, not surprised whatsoever. It's kind of crazy. But I wanted to get to this comment from Michael, if you could bring that back up, because this is something that I see over and over again, where you're talking about payroll, which is obviously a very sore subject, especially here in St. Louis with the Cardinals. But this is a sentiment that I've seen over and over again from fans. Michael Wagner says ownership makes a ton of money for Ballpark Village and is involved in the redevelopment of the Millennium Hotel, which is $675 million project. The Cardinals allow ownership to profit, but that money is not reinvested. So the money is being reinvested into what you were talking about there with Ballpark Village and with the Millennium Hotel. I think it's absolutely great. And that's more of, right now, the way that I could break up ownership, and Randy, you can speak to this more than I can, but this is just my perception of what's going on here, is that Bill DeWitt Jr. is still in charge of more of the baseball side of things, and Bill DeWitt III, his son, has been heading the business front for a while, which is Ballpark Village and now the Millennium Hotel. If you've been downtown, you want to see any progress for the city. I know I've said this over and over again, and you guys don't want to hear probably the outsider harping on how important it is to have a healthy downtown, but it is. It really is. And so I'm glad that they are.
You're not an outsider, but tell us why you know that from firsthand knowledge.
Because of what happened in Nashville. Though people go vacation in Nashville now, and that's still the craziest thing ever to me, is when people go say, I'm going to go vacation in Nashville. I'm like, Nashville? Like, that's where I grew up. Broadway. And if you went, have you ever been to Broadway when you were younger?
No.
Before what it is now?
I was there when I was in my 20s.
Okay, so then Broadway,
Long time
what it
ago.
is now, where it has the honky tonks with all the celebrities' names on it, like the new buildings, all that stuff, did not look like that. It was like a ghost town on Broadway. It was just booths where you could buy two, get one free, and there was not much going on.
Were there like a couple of recording studios or something?
Yeah, there is just not much going on Broadway. But now you've seen that Nashville has boomed and has surpassed many other major cities when it comes to development. It does matter having a healthy market where you have your city. If you have a healthy city, more young professionals are more willing to go to that city, which means more jobs, and the jobs go where the young professionals are. And so you want that progress for the city. Sorry, that was like a long thing to talk about. I have no issue whatsoever with ownership investing that money into downtown because you need it. Same thing with Carolyn Kindle, who's done a fantastic job of making sure that she's helped with kind of the renaissance of that area too, building that up. That's important to have.
Right. And I think one of the things that we need to keep in mind is, number one, the Cardinals have a partner, a 50-50 partner in Ballpark Village, Cordish Construction, who are also partners, by the way, in the Millennium Project. And those are separate entities. And it's hard to explain because I don't own businesses. But if you have a big overarching company that is a subsidiary, it's not a necessity or a likelihood that the two companies will work in conjunction and everything will be incestuous. For example, PepsiCo owns Pizza Hut and Frito-Lay. Well, just because PepsiCo owns Pizza Hut and Frito-Lay, it doesn't mean that profits from Frito-Lay chips go to PepsiCo because people are buying Pepsi products. It doesn't work that way. They're separate companies and separate entities. And that's the way the Cardinals treat Ballpark Village and the Cardinals. And because they're separate entities and we don't run the business, the Cardinals choose to run their businesses that way. The money that they get from Ballpark Village, which, oh, by the way, only profits when the Cardinals are good, it doesn't necessarily go to the Cardinals. It's split between Cordish and the other companies and I don't know what the subsidiary is. It's not the Cardinals that own, it's the DeWitt family that owns Ballpark Village.
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction. I know that people would say at the end of the day, well, if they want my money, if they want me to support the Cardinals and they want me to support Ballpark Village, then I want to see that investment in payroll. To your point of what you were talking about earlier about revenue going down in Major League Baseball in general, this isn't just a Cardinals thing that we're seeing. I know that the Mets, the Dodgers, these are outliers that you're seeing right now in baseball. And that's why as we creep closer to the CBA, we're hearing more conversations about the salary floor and the salary cap, because there is the haves and have-nots. And the Cardinals have been a part of the haves for a long time. But at the same time, this is not a big market like New York or LA.
And Steve Cohen, the Mets owner, is spending his own money. He's willing to take a loss so that he can pay players and build a team. And the Dodgers are just making an outrageous sum of money through revenue, in large part because they got Ohtani, they got Yamamoto, they got Sasaki, and the Japanese investment in the Dodgers is off the chart. So they're making a ton of revenue from streams that just at this point aren't available to the Cardinals because they don't have Sochiguchi anymore.
Even look at the Cubs. You know, the Cubs were third in revenue in all of Major League Baseball last season. They generate a lot of money. And Chicago is a bigger market than St. Louis. It is. It's a bigger market. What market is Chicago? Is it like market? Is it market 3?
Yeah, really? LA 1 or New York 1, LA 2, Chicago 3.
Okay, so it's a huge market. And so when you actually talk about market size, the Cubs are third in revenue, huge city, big market, and their payroll is not reflective of that whatsoever. So it shows you how things are going right now in Major League Baseball, because you also have everything that's in flux with the TV revenue, everything that happened with Bally and now FanDuel and what the future of that will look like. So I know it's really frustrating, but at the same time, I think that it's something that's happening in baseball right now. And that's what makes the upcoming CBA negotiations really interesting in 2026. If we will have a salary floor, a cap, which I still can't see happening, but I think it would be beneficial for baseball.
I'll be really interested to see what happens too, because there are things that Bill DeWitt knows that probably other owners don't know, because Bill DeWitt has Rob Manfred's ear. And Rob Manfred has Bill DeWitt's ear. Bill was very instrumental in the 2011 negotiation for a new CBA, and he's always got his ear to the ground. And I think one of Rob Manfred's real confidants in moving ahead with any collective bargaining negotiation is Bill DeWitt Jr. So I think that if there's going to be a shutdown to build a salary cap, I think Bill DeWitt would probably have a pretty good idea that it was going to happen.
Deep voice, dude, I wanted to ask you this too. I think this is a really good question about the upcoming CBA negotiations. More likely a salary cap / floor, or losing an entire season due to labor negotiations?
I think it's both. I think that's
all of the above. Oh, that's disastrous.
They'll lose. So let me go back to that. They would lose a season, more likely a salary cap floor, or losing an entire season. Oh, I think, yeah, you'll lose the season due to labor negotiations to have a salary cap or floor. That's what I think.
You really think that they would lose an entire season?
Oh, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It is, and it might kill the sport. We'll see. By the way, Braves Reb, MLB average attendance is at its highest since 2008. Maybe it's a Cardinals problem, guys. Well, yeah, there's no doubt that the Cardinals haven't made the playoffs in a couple of years. There is fatigue for Mo. There is fatigue for Ollie, no doubt. The team is not performing at a very high level. I don't think there's any doubt that it is a Cardinals issue. And people say, well, it's too expensive to go to ball games. Well, then I ask, well, doesn't that same economy exist in Kansas City? Doesn't that same economy exist in Cleveland? Doesn't that same economy exist in Los Angeles? Yeah. Now, do we have a crime problem? Yes, but it's way better, apparently. That's what I heard towards the end of the mayoral race.
It's gotten better.
Yeah.
It's gotten better.
What I hear.
You know. Yeah. By the way, fun fact on that. St. Louis City, they like to actually recategorize what's considered violent stats. So that's why it might be slightly different. And also you've had a reduce in population. So that's just my other little rant. Somebody asked me earlier, not to get, and then we'll get back to baseball, sorry. But somebody asked me earlier if Nashville had crime issues like St. Louis. Yes, there's always going to be crime issues. Nashville has crime issues now, even with the more that the emphasis they put on tourism, because then you have opportunists who like to take advantage of that, where it's easy to rob people on Broadway. That's an issue that you see currently right now. If you go to Nashville, leave your purse at home and safe. Like, don't leave it out. Don't take it with you is a very fair assumption there.
Thanks for that.
But yeah, you had East Nashville used to not be a great place, which is right across the bridge from Broadway. And so there would be some crime that spilled over. But what happened is when I was in high school, they did the merger of the city and county, which I know is a very sore subject here too. And there was more of an emphasis put on public safety and tourism, and which led to the boom that we see now in Nashville.
And that's why Indianapolis, by the way, through a different venue, through sports, has turned themselves into what they are. DC3, I want to clarify something. DC3 coming up on the chat line says STL market would be top 14 easily if it was merged, but we all know how backwards this metro area can be. We would be the same market size, because the market size is what you have in your DMA, in your market area. So we would still be, what are we, 24, something like that, 23?
It would, when I, are
24.
we, like TV wise, when I came here, it was 29, I believe.
Okay.
I believe, or something like that.
So, but that's not going to change. However, you're not wrong in that if the city and county would merge, we would become the 11th largest city, and we would have a crime rate. I think last I heard it was 54th, the 54th highest crime rate if the city and county were to merge, and it'd be the 11th largest city in America.
You see, we're always going to find a way to just convince you of a merger. That's all I'm here to do. I'm actually here as kind of like a covert operative, where I'm trying to convince you all to do a merger. That's what I'm here for, apparently. Yeah, that's what I do here. But you're not wrong. It would be very beneficial. There's just a lot of things that I've learned here in St. Louis that has kept people from wanting to do the merger. And municipalities are a big part of that.
Yep. St. Louis, Orlando, Denver, and Minneapolis are around the same population, but all three others are growing quicker. That was the other interesting thing about St. Louis, is that we had more people that were dying than were being born last year.
That's an issue.
Yeah.
That is an
Brooke
issue.
trying to solve that.
I'm trying to do, I'm not going to be like Elon Musk, where I tried to really repopulate the whole area, but I am trying my best by adding one more.
So anyway, the Cardinals,
what did you say, Rakia?
We're talking about attendance and things like that. I just want to make sure we're keeping the narrative correct, because we had a chat earlier that I just think is wrong, because looking at Baseball Reference right now, for 2025, they have MLB baseball games getting 27,000 people per game. That is, last year it was 29,000 per game. And in the middle teens, it was 30,000 per game. It was 32,000 per game in 2008. It was still 30,000 in 2004. The last time it was 18,000 in 2021, COVID affected. It was 26,500 in 2022. The last time that baseball had a season with less than 28,000 per game across the league was 2003. So I just want to make sure we're continuing this conversation with the correct context, which is that attendance is down across Major League Baseball, not up. And this is a St. Louis problem, but it's not only a St. Louis problem. This is an issue economy-wise across Major League Baseball. This right now would be the lowest attendance per game across the league since 2003.
Okay, thank you, sir. And by the way, as far as the Cardinals are concerned, in 2022, they drew 3.32 million fans, and they're budgeting for about 2.4 this year. So about 1 million fewer fans over the course of 3 years than they had before. And that's from a high-level source.
Sources say.
So there's so much. And the other part of this, Brooke, I think that we need to point out is that when you're in the situation that the Cardinals are in, payroll doesn't really mean a lot. The Cardinals would like to have a lesser payroll. They would have loved to have had Contreras and Gray say, yeah, we'll accept trades elsewhere. And they would have liked to have had Arenado take the trade to Houston. They
even said that the Arenado thing was about payroll. And they even said the same thing about Contreras and Sonny Gray. It was about moving those three for payroll.
And that's why they went to them and asked if they would accept trades. And I don't know if they went to, if they were crazy enough to go to Miles Michaelis, but he probably would laugh. Said, no, nobody's going to trade for me. So, but that is the thing. So the Gray contract, which by the way started off low and gets higher, right? 10 last year, 25, and then 35 next year. Until I could be paying that. And then the Contreras contracts are both prohibitive for the Cardinals in large part, in almost 100% part, because of the no trades that they gave.
It goes back to the evaluation. Right. Evaluation has been an issue. We talked about Herrera earlier, where all of a sudden now we're learning more about his arm. I'm sorry, that's not something that just appears out of nowhere, where he's having issues with his arm, and we're talking about him being able to throw out runners. That's not something that just appears out of nowhere, right? Like that's not something that happens. Same thing with Willson Contreras, is that it's not a mystery that Willson Contreras was not great at calling a game. I sent you a clip this past weekend of AJ Przinsky on Foul Territory. I like watching their show, where he obviously was a catcher, and he talked about how important catchers are and how the value of them is really declining, because it was the Marlins who are basically telling the catcher from the dugout how to call a game. And we've lost the importance of how important that is for catchers, that they need to be able to call a game. They need to be able to manage the pitchers and make pitchers better. That's why we're so spoiled with Yachty. And I think they were hoping to get the same thing out of Willson Contreras, but that's not the case. And he's moved over to first base. But it all goes back to evaluation. And that's, I think, a lot of where the consternation has come from is, yes, they've spent money these past few years in free agency, going out and getting guys, but it hasn't been money well spent.
No. And I think the Cardinals organizationally are, for whatever reason, reluctant to lean on the guys who have actually been there and done that.
Yes.
Because I can tell you with 100% certainty that Mike Matheny would help out. If they asked Mike Matheny to help, who is a disciple of the Dave Duncan School and is a multiple Gold Glover, and kind of helped Yachty along in terms of helping Yachty learn how to manage his staff, Mike Matheny would help if they asked, but nobody asks. So they've got Ethan Goforth, who is their minor league catching instructor, who I'm sure is a very good technical catching instructor. But I don't think that Ethan Goforth caught major league games and caught in the playoffs and made pitchers better like Mike Matheny did.
And that seems to be almost a lost art with catching now.
Yep.
And not even a lost art, but to your point, an art that not many people are valuing as much anymore in organizations. When it's getting the most out of your catchers, which is a very valuable position, is making sure that you have the right people in place behind the scenes that makes the catcher understand or helps them learn before they get to the major league level the importance of how to call a game, how to handle the pitchers. Because even we heard, with Matthew Liberatore, he loves Pedro Pages, loves a lot of the pitchers, clearly love Pedro Pages because he knows how to manage the pitchers and make them better.
And I think the Marlins example being a prime one, these management people, not all management people, but management people are so power hungry and they want to have their hands in everything. And they might not necessarily know what's going on. I can tell you, when I see that Marlins general manager, I know that he doesn't know what he doesn't know more than Mike Matheny. I can tell you that. So I think that's a problem, is that people that have never played the game are trying to call pitches based off their spreadsheet. And rather than having somebody who's actually been in the trenches and won and has experience winning and also has helped other young catchers get better, they've got a guy in the dugout who's probably never played who's calling the pitches.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of teams have gotten away from. And it's something that it's surprising that the Cardinals have missed out on that, considering how rich their history is of not letting more of those guys in the organization. I understand that maybe they're going to be a lot because former players, Randy, you can definitely speak to this. Former players definitely have egos on them. Breaking news. Former players definitely have egos. If you're a professional athlete and you're one of how many players are in Major League Baseball playing currently right now?
780, 790.
So yeah, you have to be really freaking good and confident to be able to play at this level. So that comes with an ego. I think that some of those organizations, and you could put the Cardinals in this category too, do you think they're just intimidated by somebody coming in and disrupting their plan of maybe what they want?
Yeah, intimidated because those people know what they're talking about, and those people can show them a World Series ring that, or at least a National League Championship ring. In Mike Matheny's case, it's say, yeah, I caught at the major league level, and here's my Gold Glove collection, and here's my National League Championship ring. By the way, it'd be nice if Yachty would show up and help out in this regard too, but that's another story altogether. He's in Austin helping his son.
Yeah, that's true.
He's doing the family thing, but I just think
there's others. There's clearly, as you mentioned, Mike Matheny,
Yeah.
even Mark McGwire. I know that Mark McGwire really well. Do the Cardinals call him and ask him?
No, the Cardinals don't communicate with him at all.
His son is playing baseball at SLU, by the way, so not too far away.
No, he's another guy that has expressed a desire to help, but the Cardinals don't communicate with him.
Chris Carpenter losing him from the staff was a huge loss.
That might have been a philosophical difference, Brooke.
I hate hearing that.
I think if you were going to go philosophical differences, and I was going to do a power ranking of what I think caused the philosophical differences, I would rate Chris Carpenter not being in the organization as number one.
That's a huge loss because now they're having to reemphasize developing, and it's great. You want to have your young pitchers be able to succeed, but they've had to, when we're talking about payroll being so high for the team here recently, it's because they had to go out and sign guys from outside the organization when you could have kept Chris Carpenter here. I know that things were tight during COVID, but why not keep a guy like that around, especially now when you're trying to focus on getting the most out of these young pitchers? I'd be calling up Chris Carpenter yesterday.
I hate getting upset about this. I
and
do.
Fired up.
But here's the thing.
Because Chris Carpenter's a great guy too. Intimidating, but such a great and insightful guy.
Yeah. Let's do a blind taste test here, okay? And because but let's just do a blind taste test. Okay. Pitcher number one, or pitching coach number one, regarded as one of the toughest, grittiest pitchers ever, pitched in 2 world championships and another pitched in another. Well, no, he didn't pitch in the other World Series. So he pitched in 2 World Series, 4 championships, overcame adversity and injury on multiple occasions, is beloved in the organization that we're talking about, to the point that he was voted by the fans to that organization's Hall of Fame. And when asked what he's doing now, says, I'm teaching young pitchers how to pitch. This is, again, all due respect. B in the taste test is a former college pitching coach who had 4 years of experience as a college pitching coach, who to this point has made maybe two young pitchers better. So and by the way, the first guy has made several young pitchers better in his new organization. So you're going to go with the guy that has the experience, the winning experience, and has coached, or the guy whose experience is in college, where even there never really won.
Yeah, I'm going to take Chris Carpenter all day, every single day. And I think that part of the Cardinals' way, in my opinion, and Randy definitely weigh in on this. In my opinion, the Cardinals' way is having those alumni a part of your organization, not just as to come in during opening day, wear the red jacket, and then send them off. It's also to have them to be a resource for your players. Ozzie Smith does a great job of that. But what about the other alumni? What about the other guys that they have available? As we mentioned, Chris Carpenter, some of the other ones around. That to me is a big part of the Cardinals' way too. If they want to get back to that while also welcoming in this new era where you can, I feel like you can do both. I think you can do both, where you still have the history of the Cardinals' way, where you have old school with new school. I've seen other teams do it. I'm surprised that the Cardinals haven't embraced that more.
And I think this goes back to a word you used before, intimidation, where if you have Jim Edmonds, world champion center fielder, who's a really good hitter, and he's not shy about wanting to help young players get better, to show his stuff. A guy like Mark McGwire, who was a superb major league hitting coach, one of the best we've ever seen. He was terrific, and obviously one of the most popular players your team has ever had. Matt Holliday, great teacher. He taught one first pick in the draft, probably teaching another first pick in the draft. Matt Morris, great major league. I think what happens is you've got a lot of really popular guys from Cardinal history who have done a lot of winning, and and obviously Jay and Descalso won, but neither of them are in or are threatening to go into the Cardinals Hall of Fame. I just think that there's a level of intimidation probably that this front office feels, and they don't want that group coming in and the players following their lead, which might conflict with what the Cardinals want to teach right now.
Eric Cleveland says, Randy, you're forgetting you can't teach heart and guts. So talking about some of these younger players, I'm assuming is what you're talking about, Eric, where of course you can't teach that. That's something where I feel like for a lot of players, it's more innate for them, and it's something that has been shaped in them. And some of people just have more fire in them than others. But having a guy like Chris Carpenter around, some of that stuff can wear off onto that younger player of how you go about your business, how you hate to lose. Those are things and attributes that you can, as a younger player, learn from a guy who's been there and done that, right?
Adam Wainwright did.
Yeah.
Adam Wainwright, when he got to his first Cardinal spring training in 2004, the first thing he did was he said, I want to find a guy that I can glom onto, that is a guy that is just all about what I want to be about. And Adam Wainwright glommed onto Chris Carpenter, and that's how he became what he became, because they put his locker next to Carpenter's, and Adam Wainwright he followed Chris Carpenter like a puppy. And not that Michael Wacha has turned out to be great, but the Cardinals could have used him the last couple of years. And the thing that held him back was injury. Michael Wacha walked into camp and followed Adam Wainwright. Absolutely. You can learn a demeanor and an approach from somebody else.
You can. And it's something, especially for those younger players, where you're talking about, I think it was really great having Albert Pujols here, and for those younger players to see how he went about his business. That man is so dedicated to his craft. It was so incredible to see in person, because Randy, you had a front row seat to it for a long time. I only got to see it for that final season, but then seeing it in person, I got to see what every single person was talking about with Albert Pujols. And then it was no mystery why he had such a successful career, because you saw all the work that he put in behind the scenes. Even though we were allowed into the clubhouse in a certain amount of times, that man had already been there for hours doing he has his routine, his sauna, his, going to the batting cage. I mean, he was really putting a lot of dedication to his craft. You even saw him bring in the new age with the iPad in the dugout and bringing in the younger players.
Right. The players would gravitate towards him with that iPad in the dugout.
Yeah. he was teaching players. It was really fun to see. And it was no surprise why he was so successful because kid you not, and you saw it too, Randy. I mean, he was outworking a lot of those younger guys. Nothing against any of the younger guys who are still in the organization too, that they weren't putting in work. They were, but Albert was clearly next level when it came to his preparation for games.
Even with veteran players, like he would work with a bunch of guys during the offseason, like Edmonds and when he would come into town during their playing days, and Matheny. They would work their butts off, and Albert was just different than everybody else. But he tried to share everything that he knew with those guys. Hey, Cardinals are at Atlanta tonight, and it's a 6:15 start. Cards Hub 365 comes your way before and after the game. Daily content right here on Sports Hub STL. Cards Hub 365 is powered by Gray Bar, and this afternoon at 1, you'll get an opportunity to check it out here on YouTube. You can also get the show on demand from YouTube following the live broadcast, as well as on Apple, Spotify, or any other major podcast outlet. Sports Hub and Cards Hub 365, powered by Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. And don't forget, 1 o'clock this afternoon, and then immediately after the Cardinal game tonight, Cards Hub 365. All right, let's move on to the Blues, who play tonight.
Yeah.
They've got a 6:30 game on FanDuel Sports. We need to check that out. That'll be fun.
I know a lot of people. So we had the Blues Hub Weekly last night with Jamal Mayers, former Blues forward and Stanley Cup champ. You saw that interview with him last week when he was with us. Very insightful. And I told Jamal, with some of the comments that were coming in, Randy, I felt like it was almost like a group therapy session because people were very concerned after game 1. But Jamal said, and I think this is a really great point to keep in mind, this is a President's Cup trophy winning team, which I know that there's the curse that comes along with that. But how do you win the President's Cup trophy? Well, you're really freaking good. That's you're really good. You're really good.
Talented, and you play a great system.
Yes. And so I think that, and Jamal said this too, that there was more positives to take away from game 1 than anything, because you were able to hang around for the majority of the game with the Jets, who are the President Cup trophy winners. And it was those last 20 minutes where things fell apart. And that's where we saw the youngness in this group.
And I love seeing the even keel of Jim Montgomery yesterday after practice when asked about what he took out of the first game.
I liked our game for the majority of it. You're 3-2, up 3-2 with 10 minutes left in the third, and we didn't prevail. So we got to grow and learn from that. I think a lot of guys got some valuable experience in their first NHL playoff games, and that they'll be significantly better. And I also think we have, a lot of guys that have experience that, maybe weren't at the top of their game yesterday for us, and they'll be better.
So, yeah, very even keeled there. And that's what you need with this group. And I know that there is a lot of guys on this team who have been there and done that, but it's a different animal in the playoffs, isn't it? That's where the emotions are heightened. Some things that you would get away with during the regular season, you're not going to get away with during the playoffs. And I think you saw that in game 1. And hopefully it's a lesson that these younger players will learn quickly, because you saw there were some penalties that definitely caught up with the Blues and the younger guys. You had that Neighbors one in the first period. And then, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to put this all on Bolduc because clearly the wheels fell off in the final 20 minutes, but it did feel like a big momentum shift in the third period with that cross-checking penalty with Bolduc.
It definitely did. And momentum is huge come playoff time. And as Jammer told us, you have to react to momentum shifts in a big hurry. I thought one of the other aspects of the other night, for the first 2 periods, for a lot of the time, I thought the Blues played their game and kind of controlled the tempo. You get outshot 9-2 in the third, and the offensive zone possession time for Winnipeg was off the charts.
Yeah.
If the Blues are going to win, they're going to have to maintain possession of the puck in the offensive zone. And they just didn't do that enough in the third period on Saturday night.
No, it just looked like they were really kind of struggling with that. Thank you, Michael. Michael Ziegler, I believe is how you pronounce it. He said, "You guys are amazing. Keep up the great work. A bright spot in St. Louis right now. Thank you." Can you tell that to people on X, by the way? That's it.
Yeah, we don't want to get our egos too big. Michael, thank you very much. And we appreciate you being a member of the club.
Can you, Rockio, bring up that Jamal clip from last night? And you guys can go back and watch this interview from Blues Hub Weekly where we discuss and break down game 1 and what he's looking for game 2. But we talked about the emotions and how to handle that, because clearly Jamal has made it all the way to the Stanley Cup. He knows what it's like to go through the playoffs, and he talked about how these younger players can handle their emotions.
As somebody who's been there and done that, how do you manage the emotions during playoffs?
I think the best way to explain it is you're going to have to take a punch in the face. And what I mean, and not like you're fighting, drop gloves, drop, but you're going to have to take a punch in the face where the ref doesn't see it. Because the reality is the refs only see the retaliation. So the best thing is to explain to these young guys is, listen, you're going to have to take a punch in the face. You're going to have to take a slash. Initiate, don't retaliate, because you're going to be the one that's going to the box. And you do not want to be that guy sitting in the box when it's the playoffs and your team's killing a penalty because of some penalty you took that you could have avoided.
That is so true. And that's got to be so hard to take the punch or to take the slash because it hurts.
Yeah.
But to not retaliate is something that's an unusual ability. And that's one of the things also that when Monty talks about the experience that these guys are getting, they're getting the experience like Boldu of taking the punch in the face. And then now he knows not to retaliate.
Some comments coming in. Chad Harrington says, Kyrou scores on the breakaway. That probably changes the dynamic of the game. Yes, 100%. Number one Blues fan. What do you think of the third period? Seems like they played not to lose instead of playing to win. A defense shell does not work with a 1-goal lead, and especially with a whole period to go. And that's something that we've seen recently. And I asked Jamal about that last night, about what is it exactly that we've seen with the Blues not being able to close out games? And that goes back to the youngness that Monty was talking about, and something that Jamal pointed out as well, is that you do have a younger group of guys. And honestly, too, I know that we're talking about defense, but I think that Dylan Holloway is a huge loss for this team. I think that not having Dylan Holloway there is a big part of what we're seeing currently right now. I still think that it's a huge plus that the Blues were able to hang with them for the majority of the game. I thought they controlled the majority of the game until it got there till the end. And I think that's more of a positive takeaway, but I just really hope the Dylan Holloway loss is not something that is going to be kind of the story of this series of what could have been if he was here. Because
he goes to the net. He's a guy that makes a difference in the crease. He's a guy that'll take the eyes away from and jostle Connor Hellebuck, but he's not there. So that falls upon somebody else to do that. And by the way, the two goals, I'll give Sonny some credit too. All three goals were really snipes. They were great, beautiful goals.
Yeah.
And the Blues did not score what I would term a greasy goal. And you need to do that. And Winnipeg did that.
Holloway.
Yeah. And that's what Holloway does too. So I think, to your point, number one Blues fan, I agree with you. And that's what I was talking about when I said they didn't have enough offensive zone possession time. I haven't looked up the numbers, but and if you have them, please provide them. But Winnipeg's offensive zone possession time in the third period had to be way ahead of what the Blues was.
Yeah.
And to your point, that's kind of falling back into a shell and allowing the other team to possess the puck in the offensive zone is not a good way to win. You've got to set the tempo. You've got to be driving. You've got to go north. Yeah,
the Blues didn't dictate any play in that third period. I mean, they had just one shot on goal until I think it was just a few seconds left, where Joseph had that one shot on Hellebuck, if you even want to count that in the game whatsoever. But it really felt like things kind of fell off there towards the end. It's also going to be a really physical series, which I think is exciting to watch. 53 hits for the Blues in the game and 33 for the Jets.
Montgomery was asked about the first period, and he said, well, any series where Braden Shen is in, you're going to have a bunch of hits, especially in the first period.
Yeah.
And he had 7 in the first period by himself.
Yeah, 9 in total, 7 in the first period. I think the Blues had 32 hits in just the first period, wasn't it?
Yeah, they did. And they out-hit them by 20. There were a lot of parts of the game. The Blues won the face-off battle.
Exactly.
The one place that they didn't win probably was offensive zone possession time. Giveaways were pretty even. Takeaways were pretty even. But the score was 5-3, and that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, and I know that there was some comments too that we were discussing on the show last night of if there's anything that you would change about the lineups. And the point that Jamal made, and I think it's really important too, is maybe that you mix and match some lines, but not messing things up too much. Like he doesn't believe that Monty's going to bring in. I know that Tyler Tucker was a name that was brought up a lot during the comments last night. He doesn't think that he would just bring in a player, because then that signals to the players, hey, we're just going to game 2 and I'm already taking guys in and out.
Well, and Tyler Tucker is a nice player, but you're not going to put him in ahead of Parayko or Falk
Yeah.
or Broberg or Suter or Fowler.
Yeah.
Or who am I leaving out here? So Parayko, Broberg, Falk, Suter. There's another old guy. Oh, Letty. You're not putting him in Letty.
Sorry, Letty.
Yeah. So you're not going to put Tucker in front of any of those guys.
No, you're not. And so I think that would be a little bit more harmful than helpful. And that's what Jamal was talking about, is that it would be like sending the panic button to your group.
Yeah. And ultimately, especially with when we move to the forwards, you want to see those guys as much as you can. For better or worse, those young players, the Boldukes of the world, the Neighbors of the world, even the Kairus of the world, because he hasn't had a ton of playoff experience, although he did have 7 goals in the playoffs a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. I want to get those guys as many minutes as possible in playoff time, because I don't think the Blues plan on this team being a Stanley Cup champion.
No.
But if they're ever going to be a Stanley Cup champion,
you need that
they've
experience.
got to have the experience of the grind.
I was saying this to you before the show, and Jimmy Snuggerud, absolutely happy he's here, but I can't help but wonder where he would be. And if you're talking about the same situation where you're going to the playoffs, where he would be this season for the Blues and going in the playoffs for the Blues in terms of experience and just having that more confidence going to playoffs, if he would have joined the team last offseason as they were hoping.
It takes 2 years. It takes 2 years to become an impact player, sometimes more. I mean, look how long it took Robert Thomas to become an impact player. He was a good rookie, but really didn't become an impact player. Let's see, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 impact player.
Yeah.
And now 25 elite. Kyrou. Look how long it took Jordan Kyrou to reach the level that he's at right now. It does not happen quickly in the National Hockey League. And I was hoping last year that that Snuggerud would join the Blues, because I think it does take a couple of years. By the way, here's Jeremy Rutherford's lines at practice today for Game 2 tonight. He's got Thomas between Buchnevich and Snuggerud, Shen with Neighbors and Kyrou. I like that line. Sundqvist with Joseph and Bolduc, and then Faksa with Walker and Torchenko, the WTF line. Man, it looks different if Joseph is out and Holloway is in. It really looks different if Holloway is there for your third line. And then your defense pairings, Fowler, Parayko, Broberg, Falk, Suter, and Letty. And I'm guessing that Jordan Binnington will be the goaler.
I would, yes.
He's
and Binnington is
net.
in the starters net. Snuggerud on the top line. Yeah, and that one's interesting. I know that some people want to see Tucker in there too. I just think that that's not the right thing to do in this situation. And you're right, that line, nothing against Joseph, but a clear difference between Joseph and Holloway.
Yeah. So hopefully the Blues will be able to get a ton of production out of those guys tonight. And the other, what did you think of Binnington? Binnington allows 4 goals. The one that went under the pad was the only one that I really had a problem with. But there's games happening fast. It's hard. I thought he was fine.
I thought he was fine too. I think that as you mentioned, it was just that one that went under the pad that was one that you're like, yeah, that was not great to see. But I didn't really have any issues with it, because I just don't doubt Jordan Binnington. I think if anything, and we talked about this last night too with Jamal, is that it was more showing that with Hellbuck that it's clear that there's some cracks there where you can get to him.
Right.
I think that's a positive.
Yeah, I'm with you. And hopefully that's one thing that the Blues worked on yesterday and today. This from Chad Harrington. Positive note, the Blues showed that they have the talent to compete with the Jets. Kyrou scores on the breakaway. Shifley doesn't score off Suter's stick. Then the Blues could have won. Yeah, what's Suter's stick doing there?
Pimp Daddy Mike 2 says, Colt 55 is a good D-man, but I have seen his weaknesses. When the action is in tight, he has troubles because he's so big and has long arms and a long stick. He has troubles in tight if you pay attention. I think that with Colton Parayko, he did just come back here recently from injury too. So this is just a few games in of him getting back to what he's used to playing.
Yeah, and I think
time-wise.
People in the NHL, they might look at that and say, okay, well, so what? I think most teams in the NHL would love to have Colton Parayko on their side.
Yeah, I think 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when, Jay Bouwmeester had long arms, Larry Robinson had long arms. He was a tall guy. it's you can get by with it. Colton Parayko is fine.
I think he's fine too.
If Colton Parayko is your worst problem, you're winning the Stanley Cup.
It's a good problem to have, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. Brooke, did you know that we've got DraftKings and the crown is yours?
Oh, that's good to know.
With DraftKings
Thank
Pick
you.
6. Yeah. Baseball season is officially here, and it's time to step up to the plate with DraftKings Pick 6. Think of DraftKings Pick 6 as your fastball right down the middle. It is the easiest way for you to play for cash and take a shot at the big win. Just select 2 or more players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. Pick 6 is available in most states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Missouri, and more. It's really fun, and you'll have a great time playing. I've got today Jonathan Cannon, the White Sox starter today. He's going against the Red Sox, who have the second most strikeouts in all of baseball. And let me move. I think I had him at 6.5. Let me double check. Strikeouts thrown. Jonathan Cannon. By the way, it's the day of the Boston Marathon, so you got to get this guess in early with Jonathan Cannon of the White Sox. So I'm going to go. Tyler McGill's not in there. So Cannon, 6.5 strikeouts over, and then I think I'm going to go with a home run for Aaron Judge. That seems pretty easy against Cleveland's Williams. I'm going to go with Aaron Judge to hit a home run, and hopefully we'll do well tonight. And I'll tell you all about it tomorrow. DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. The promo code STL Sports, and you can get a great deal. $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Is it time for
the Grim Report?
It
Kind of like a
is.
Grim Report overarching, because I think this will be a fun conversation. By the way, Cronky Hater, great point here, says Nick Castellanos to hit a home run after the Pope has passed away. It's something about Nick Castellanos always hits a home run when there's something significant happening in the world. It's almost like guaranteed money. So that could be another good pick for you if you want to take that. RIP to the Pope, by the way.
Yeah. Castellanos,
Moment of silence.
0.5. So that is a good thing. Yeah,
That's a good pick.
Are we allowed to call him Pope Frank, or is it just Francis?
I think it's just Francis.
Okay, so
right?
I got to tell you guys. So when he was sick and in the hospital, I think in January, I walk into the gym and I'm watching ESPN, and it said something like Pope in critical condition. And I thought it was the Kentucky coach, Mark Pope.
Oh,
it was ESPN. I was thinking, what happened to him? He's young.
Yeah.
But no, it was the other Pope who's in really critical condition.
Apparently.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
what a day. What a day.
He made an appearance yesterday.
I know.
Made an appearance. He came out and gave a little wave,
I wonder if
and
it was a
then he's
hologram.
gone. No, it was real.
Was it real?
Oh, we're doing conspiracy theories now.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah. We'll turn into that kind of show where we're just going to put out conspiracy. It was a clone. He was already dead.
Clone, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, the new guy, you know, and I don't know if our friends at DraftKings have it, but there are odds on who the next guy is going to be.
Really?
Yeah. And there's a guy that's 3-1, an Italian dude.
So is there, like, how does that work? Because I'm not very familiar with Catholicism.
So it's kind of like, think of the NFL owners getting together and trying to decide on a commission.
Right.
It's almost identical.
Dive into this.
So,
Let's dive into this, Brooke. I got this. I got this on lock.
I think you need in the NFL, you need 3/4 majority. I think in the Pope commissionership, you need 2/3 majority. And then the NFL isn't as dramatic with the smoke.
Yeah. So to Randy's point, all the Cardinals in the College of Cardinals go into the papal conclave and they start ripping votes. And it needs to be 2/3 majority for them to pick the winner. And every time they don't pick the winner, they burn the votes and they throw up black smoke. And then once they pick the winner, they throw in a concoction that makes the smoke white. And then it comes out of the little chimney and everyone in Vatican Square gets really, really happy. So it's awesome. It's a fun little piece of Catholic history, and this will be the third one I see in my lifetime. So it'll be kind of cool.
Oh, really?
Wow.
I mean, it's a bummer when the Pope dies, but I'm just saying is the conclaves is a cool thing because like back in the day, it was super corrupt and it was all like, how can you sneak in food past like the locked doors? And now it happens a lot faster. There used to be conclaves that would take months and months because first everybody had to get to Rome, and then you would sit there and you politic for months and stuff like that. Now it's a little bit more, it's a little bit more quick pace, but still it's fascinating. And now we get betting markets, and yet I woke up today and people are putting out like favorite graphics with like rundowns of like which popes are conservative or moderate or liberal, and the odds that they're going to get elected, and of course an Italian's the favorite because they're always the favorites.
Huh.
Yeah. So Brooke,
it's fascinating. It's
JP2
right in the
came
bag.
here in 1999.
Mm-hmm.
He appeared at the Dome, and the Rams won the Super Bowl. And then he appeared over at what was then Savas Center. Got a hockey stick and a jersey out of it, and I got to see the Pope Mobile, by the way.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's cool.
And the Blues won the President's Trophy. So,
wow.
Yeah. So Rams win the Super Bowl, Blues win the President's Trophy. JP2, thank you. We owe you. And RIP to you too.
RIP. Yes, moment of science. Okay, now back to some baseball talk because I saw this clip on Instagram. If you didn't see this, Victor Scott II, when they were in New York, he went over to MLB Network and he made an appearance. Great to see him on the show there. I'm glad that they're showcasing his personality. He also was in the studio in New York over the weekend too. But he was asked by MLB Network on their Instagram account on Friday to rank his, so very important key word here, his top 5 Cardinals of all time. And this is how Victor Scott II ranked them.
Top 5 Cardinals players of all time.
So I'm going to have to go with Ozzie Smith, Albert Pujols. Let's go Mark McGwire, Vince Coleman, and Willie McGee.
Okay, so we see the list there. Ozzie Smith, Albert Pujols, Mark McGwire, Vince Coleman, and Willie McGee. It's important to note these are his top 5 Cardinals of all time because I saw the comments where people are like, oh my God, how do you forget Stan the Man, all the different kind of stuff. It's because it's his personal top 5. So my question to everybody today in the Grim Report is throwaway stats, history, whatever you want to do here. Who needs that anyways? Who are your top 5 Cardinals of all time? So it could be even a statistic of you liked who they were off the field.
Mm-hmm. So people that have been nice to me as a reporter. Okay.
This is good. So very biased.
Very biased.
This is very biased.
Top 5. Mike Matheny, Bob Tewksbury, Terry Pendleton, Fernando Vina, Ozzie Smith.
I like that one. I like that. I like Ozzie a lot. You also made some other lists that I don't know.
Oh, you want to hear my 5 that I didn't like? 5 least favorite. Keith Hernandez, Yachty, Mike Leake, Dennis Eckersley, John Tudor.
What was Mike Leake like to deal with press-wise?
He was a jerk.
Really?
Yeah.
So he wasn't good and he was a jerk?
Yeah, he was.
That was a terrible combo, personality-wise.
Yeah, not the most high character individual. He actually stole stuff from Macy's when we had a Macy's here. He actually got in trouble for stealing T-shirts or something.
What?
Yeah, it's
why did he do that? Didn't he already steal enough money from the Cardinals?
I know. No, it was when he was with the Reds that he stole the stuff. Yeah.
Rockio, who is your top 5 Cardinals?
Hold on a second. I got to find out what 40-year-old Dennis Eckersley did to piss off Randy.
Yeah, that's a good question.
He was just he wasn't a pleasant individual. He was, you know what? He's from Boston. Okay, doesn't that tell you all you need to know?
I didn't know he was from Boston.
I think
he's
so.
Not from Boston.
At least he spent too much time
from Boston.
There. Huh?
He was born in Oakland.
So born in Oakland, but spent too much time in Boston then as a player.
Okay, fair enough. We're getting a lot of top 5s in the chat if we want to rip through some of these, bro.
Oh, gosh.
But by the way, Bach Hogg and a couple other people say if you don't have Stan and you don't have Gibby in your list, it's a fail. Randy, even with your qualifying that you're having a very different list and you're going very personal, they don't like the list.
Yeah, it's important to note. So this is just your own personal list because I know with a lot of people, the comments for VS2 was like, oh, he was young. he likes Willie McGee a lot. Like he worked with Willie McGee. So this is about your personal preference of Cardinals. And I think Ozzie is going to be a general consensus. Wouldn't you say Ozzie Smith is going to be on everybody's list? He would be on my personally. I think you put Albert Pujols on there. Now, did Albert like dealing with the media a lot of times? No.
It depended on the day.
It depended on the day, but he did speak more than Yachty. A lot of people have Yachty on their list. Where was he on your list, Randy?
He was on the bad list. He was on the naughty list.
He was on the naughty. Remember, this is not about, I said stats be damned and history. We're throwing that out the window. Just your favorite Cardinals of all time. Sure. I made a list too of the scariest ones.
Oh, yeah, you did.
And most like intimidating.
You want me to give them to you?
Yes.
Ozuna, Carlos Martinez.
This is my scary list.
She's a female. Yeah. Tommy Pham. Also really nice.
He
Tommy Pham.
Actually can. Tommy Pham, he's intimidating and very intense. I'm sure you guys gather that from Tommy Pham. Very intimidating, very intense, but then he can be super nice too. Like he can be really, really nice and friendly.
And then you had for as Yachty as the number
very
4
intimidating. I will never forget. So I feel like it's safe to share this story. Since we're just kind of airing it all out about press stuff behind the scenes. I remember the first time I went to a Cardinals clubhouse was super excited to interview Yadier Molina. Because who wouldn't be, of course. And so then I walk in there and they have music playing, you know, they have the Spanish music going in there. And I noticed that none of the press people were talking to Yadier Molina. And I can't remember who I asked. It might have been Derek Gould or something. I was like, why is nobody going and asking Yachty any questions? Like, it's Yadier Molina. And he was like, don't do it. When Yachty wants to speak, he will let you know, but don't bother him outside of that.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and I appreciate Ellipsis 150 saying Randy needs to explain having Yachty on the bad list, and it's not necessarily a bad list, but Yachty was here for 20 years, and I have no relationship with him whatsoever, none. And most players, when a guy like I've just been around. It's not like I've just been around. Okay, so people say, oh, he's been around. So pretty much every player that spent any significant time here, I have somewhat of a relationship with the people. And I have my honorable mention here. Kyle Gibson, Mark McGwire, Lou Brock, Rex Hudler, Brian Jordan. These guys that are still around, we've had Brian Jordan on the show.
Brian Jordan's great.
Yeah, if we want Rex Hudler on the show tomorrow, we can get him. If we want McGwire, if we want Gibson, all those guys I developed relationships with. Didn't do social things, but, I would talk to them. Albert, I never developed any sort of a relationship with Yadier Molina. And so it's not that he's a bad guy. It's just that I have zero relationship with him. And I think some players take it upon themselves to have a relationship. And it was, here's something really weird. So I think in Yachty's second to last year here, was he at the Wayno Top Golf event that you went to?
Yeah.
Yachty was there.
Yeah.
So Yachty didn't go to, except for his own event, he didn't go to other players' charitable events. He walks in that night at Top Golf, comes right up to me and shakes my hand, says, "Hey, how you doing?" What's going on here? And here he is.
Did you think you were getting like pranked or something?
I did. Yeah.
You were like, wait a minute.
And he's smiling and happy. It was just, so I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm just saying that in terms of my favorites, since I have no relationship with him whatsoever, he can't be one of my favorites by definition.
Yeah. And I had somewhat of a relationship with him, but it was very surface level, just because I was close to Benji. And I think that when he saw that I was close to Benji, then he was good with that. Yeah. But it was very, very surface level.
This will be controversial. And another guy that I just wasn't covering the team enough. But you developed a pretty good relationship with Jack Flaherty, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Jack Flaherty was great.
And
guy. I know that he was very controversial. So my personal, if we were just talking about guys that I have interacted with. Now, I would say that I only got to know Bob Gibson a little bit. But, man, I loved Bob Gibson. Awesome. He was fiery. He was so fiery. And I loved just hearing his stories. Even in that short amount of time that I got to know him, I'd put Bob Gibson on my list. Loved Lou Brock. Lou Brock was so nice. Nice. I got to go to his birthday before he passed away. And I don't know if you got to too, but there was always a celebration at his house for his birthday every single year where fans would come. And Lou was so nice.
He was
so nice.
one of the nicest people.
So
ever.
Lou Brock.
Brooke, when I was a kid, I had in 1974 a Brock Space Burglars 105 Club T-shirt.
Yeah.
So he was my favorite player as a kid. So to meet him and find out how cool and what a great guy he was really cool.
Yeah. And Bob Gibson, like, he's fiery in a good way. Like, he's not a jerk or a jackass.
No.
Like, I think that's like the best way to describe it is like, he was a passionate guy, and that came through in every single way. I loved talking to Bob Gibson.
He was great.
I liked Lou Brock, Ozzie Smith, of course. Great guy. And outside of that too, just personally, like, Cardinals that I enjoyed getting to know and know well is probably like Lars would be up there. Shocking, I know. Lars Newbar, great guy. Love his story too, of where during COVID, he didn't even think that he was going to have a baseball career. And then he's been able to play. And it's just, with the Japanese aspect of it too, for those who don't know, part Japanese. And that's just a really cool thing to connect with him with. Brendan Donovan is another one of my favorite players because I remember Brendan Donovan when he came up to the club. His father, if you guys didn't know, is involved in the military, huge Army brat. He actually traveled, but in my family, my dad was a Marine. Uncles were all served too, and they served in Vietnam. And so military is a big part of my life. And with Donovan, it's a big part of his. And I noticed a quote from the Marines in his locker in the clubhouse. And so we connected on that. And I think Brendan Donovan, for all those who are fans of him, he is just as good of a person as you would hope he would be.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I also want to point out, look, this is all about players. The four managers that I covered on a daily basis, Whitey, Joe Torre, probably my favorite of all of these people that we're talking about. But Whitey, Torre, Tony, Mike, Matheny, love them all. And had, great conversations with them about baseball and other things. All so good to me in terms of explaining the game, talking the game. Mike Matheny I think he's a great human being. He's one of my favorite people. And so I don't want to leave them out. And I have Mike as at the top of my players. But I loved all the managers that I covered too. And I get such a kick out of Joe Torre. It makes me feel really special that Joe Torre wants to talk to me.
Yeah, I'm sure it would. And that just shows you. But I think things have also changed in a lot of ways too, of the relationship that sometimes managers and coaches have with press. I feel like press is seen maybe more now in general as more of these nagging, annoying people than anything. But I had a close relationship with Schilt. Schilt was always great.
He's great. I just didn't cover him. I didn't cover him enough.
Yeah, I was around Schilt a lot because I was in TV at that time. And so I was there like every single day. I felt like Schilt was great to deal with. And Ollie's pretty open about things too. And so that's not taking it with it. He's very open about things. But yeah, Schilty was great. I'm trying to think about you mentioned Jack Flaherty. I feel like Jack Flaherty is a very polarizing topic here in St. Louis, but he is a great guy and
he's smart.
He's very smart. I think that he just sometimes, and he does step into his own stuff sometimes. Like, I'll give him credit for that. But if you go and talk to Jack Flaherty, he'll actually own up to it too.
A lot of times though, the public doesn't want to hear players' opinions about things other than baseball.
Yeah.
And Jack has opinions and he's a thoughtful guy.
He's very passionate.
Yeah.
He's very, very passionate.
Yeah. And so I get that some people, hey, stick to sports, but he's just not one of those guys.
Yeah. And I know that the art of pitching comment's another one that would always come up too with Jack Flaherty. But he was, I think there's a lot of, I think another guy too that is maybe like in the misunderstood category is Tyler O'Neill. Tyler O'Neill was great to deal with. He was super nice. And he was just like actually so insightful. And he would be, if he had a bad game, I think this is another great barometer. Not that anybody cares about what we think about dealing with these players, but I think a great barometer of a good player, in my opinion, is one that if they had a terrible game, they weren't hiding from the media.
Right.
And they weren't hiding in the showers. Because what happens is whenever a game ends, you have to talk to the manager first, then you get access into the clubhouse. And some of the players, especially the veteran ones, have learned that either you get out before the manager is done speaking so you don't have to deal with media, or you go hide in the showers. Tyler O'Neill, if he had a bad game, something happened, he was always right there willing to talk to media.
Do you remember during the pandemic, 2020 season, no fans, or maybe it was 21, no fans. Yeah. 21. when Harrison Bader dropped the ball in the outfield. So and we aren't around.
Yeah.
We aren't around. So there's nobody in the clubhouse. Harrison Bader goes to the PR staff and says, "Hey, I want to do the Zoom with the media."
Yeah. Harrison Bader's another good one.
Stand up, yeah.
Yeah, Harrison Bader's another good one. I know he's very cocky, but I thought he was hilarious.
Yeah.
I thought Harrison was so funny. I'll never forget. Remember when he had the long hair prior to being a Yankee that was long and curly? I just thought he was so funny because he had a vision for everything. He was very good at marketing himself. And I was like, you got to share, just joking. I was like, you got to share your hair care secrets in this interview. And he was like, oh, well, I got some stuff going on behind the scenes. I got to make sure, I got to work on some of these deals and maybe we could reveal that. And I was like, oh,
cool. Good. DC3, Matheny is tough to judge because he's the equivalent of Ryan Day in college football. Was given the keys to the Lambo out of the gate. I hear this a lot. Okay. So Matheny never had Albert Pujols, never had a healthy Chris Carpenter. Carpenter retired after 2012 and he was never the same after the duel with Halladay in the playoffs in 2011. Mike never had a healthy Rafael Furcal. He never had a healthy Lance Berkman. So I don't think that you can say that I don't think he ever really had a healthy Jason Mott. I don't think that he really had the same team that Tony had at the end of 2011. And I think he did a really good job of developing some young players here. Not that they reached the pinnacle that we thought that they would reach, guys like Colton Wong and stuff like that. But Alan Craig wound up being a pretty good player that was a key to that 2013 World Series team. He got Cosma going, got probably more out of people like Cosma and Descalso than a lot of people would have. He did, I thought, a really good job of transitioning from that World Series team to what he ultimately had in 2013. But I don't believe in my heart of hearts that he ever really had the same team that Tony La Russa had that won the World Series.
Yeah. And you got to see also different versions of Mike Matheny than I did. And I've also been able to talk to Mike Matheny after his managing career. And it feels like a weight has been lifted off his shoulders. I got here in St. Louis at the very tail end, which we all know was not a fun part of Mike Matheny's managing career, where things were a little bit darker, I felt like. Because I remember when I came here, I heard so many great things about Colton Wong. And then Colton Wong, we didn't know until later on. Things were not great behind the scenes with him and Mike Matheny. And I didn't know that all that stuff was like going on, where it seemed like Matheny butted heads with some of the players.
No doubt. He, as a manager, he had his faults, but I'm talking about from my perspective.
Yeah. And you got to see more version. You got to see the player, you got to see the managing at the beginning version of him.
The thing that I try to do, and the reason that I have decent relationships with a lot of athletes, is because my relationships with them are more personal. I ask how the family's doing, how's life going? I think especially baseball players, because they're in it every day.
Yeah.
They don't want to be asked all the time about baseball. So they like to talk about something else. And we would talk other sports, we would talk about what's going on in life. And so with all of those guys, when I gave you my top 5 there, Matheny, Tewksbury, Pendleton, Vigna, Ozzie, all of those guys, I talked about stuff other than baseball. Ozzie obviously he's got a passion for golf now, but he loved the Olympics when he played, and he would love to talk about, and he knew everybody that was going to be participating in the track and field and stuff like that. Bob Tewksbury liked to talk about, he got up and he would tell the players, hey, look, we all live at that point, the players lived either in Chesterfield, or I guess a lot of them live in the Central West End now. At that point, it was Chesterfield and Clayton. But he would say, we're all driving down 40 on the way to the ballpark. Take 20 minutes someday and stop by either Cardinal Glennon or Children's Hospital. He said, you can't imagine the impact that you can have on these kids if you stop by. He really wanted to make an impact and use the platform. So that was a Tewksbury thing. Fernando Vigna was just a fun-loving, you could talk about anything that was going on in the world with him. And obviously, I've mentioned Matheny. And then my other guys, we talked to Kyle Gibson every Wednesday last year, and he was so much fun. Big Mac loved to talk sports because his brother was an NFL quarterback. He had been a pitcher in baseball at USC, and he could talk college sports, pro sports. Lou Brock was just a fun-loving guy. Rex Hudler, you just wind up Rex and let him go. And then
Yeah.
Brian Jordan. And all of those guys, just really good guys. Colby Rasmus, Samuel Howe says, Colby Rasmus?
What was that like?
My dad teach me how to play baseball. Yeah, Colby was a really talented baseball player.
That's a politically safe answer. That's a good one.
And then
I was wondering just how that was behind the scenes of what all that with his dad. That was such an interesting story.
That's because Tony could not abide him being coached by his dad. So Tony basically ripped him right before the 2011 trade deadline and kind of forced Mo into making that trade and turning over the bullpen and winning the World Series. Samuel, you also told us, and we appreciate this, you would think Brian Jordan would be around more. Brian would love to be around more. Brian Jordan, and the voting for the Cardinal Hall of Fame is over. Brian Jordan would love to be working with Cardinal broadcasts somehow. Still has a great allegiance to St. Louis, was here last week. He's going to be here in a couple of weeks. He always comes in for the Demetrius Johnson Foundation football camp to provide youngsters with opportunities to go to HBCUs. He's a great guy who loves St. Louis, and he's very proud to be a Cardinal, and he would love to be a part of the Cardinal broadcasts if they would let him. The fact that Brian Jordan isn't around more is not a Brian thing.
Exactly. I think that's a good point. You know, another one that we haven't mentioned that is super nice alumni, Ray Lankford.
Ray's great.
Ray's so nice.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for him. I think a lot of times athletes don't take care of what they earn in baseball. And Ray is set for life, and he's in great shape. And he's loving life. Every time I see him, he's smiling and having
so
a good
nice.
time.
Yeah, he's just
really
like a
good guy.
fun-loving guy.
Yeah. Let's see. Does your brain? What are we doing here with Sports Hub STL? Why would the rankings be about quantity?
We're getting into food.
Let's turn to throughout top 5 food chains, all types included. Ellipsis 150 then responded with, if we're going by number of locations, which like my thing's like, how does your brain go to top 5 fast food chains and you go, well, obviously we're talking about who has the most locations, not like the food I like the most.
Food.
And it just Ellipses 150 always finds a way to take the weirdest angle in the food discussions, and I don't understand how he gets there, but he always somehow takes a ramp across the highway and get to some other part of the discussion so fast.
I have a question for you, Matthew. The Zaxby's in Columbia has closed. Are we still in the SEC?
Ooh, good
There's
question.
2 locations.
Oh, okay.
No, there's two. There were 2 Zaxby's in Columbia. So are you? I think one closed and one's still open. So we're
okay. The one that was right by the stadium drive is closed.
Yeah, I believe there's 2 Zaxby's in Columbia.
So we're still in the SEC. Okay,
that's important because you have to have a Zaxby's to
be.
The
other question
is, don't. We don't.
Yes, you
do.
We
were in the SEC for like 2-3. We went to an SEC title game, by the way, which Tennessee hadn't been to in like 3 decades. We went to an SEC title game without a Zaxby's in Columbia, so I don't see why we need to have one. You know, it wasn't there for the first 2-3 years we were in the SEC, so, oh well.
I think it's just a matter of being official.
It is. It's important. It's a very important
I thought Chick-fil-A was I thought Chick-fil-A was all you really needed. If you have a Chick-fil-A,
be in the SEC? No, like there has to be something that's specific to the Southeastern Conference. Like if you want to be a part of the South, then there's got to be a Zaxby's.
And what's your version of White Castle?
Crystals.
Crystal. Doesn't Crystal also? I mean, we need to have.
Yeah, I think you need to have Crystals. I wish that there would be a Publix here.
Oh yeah,
that'd be nice.
Okay, so my other question is for the everybody in the room. Wilson is here, Matthew, not in the room, but he's on the screen. Brooke, is Panera, aka Breadco, fast food?
No. Well, they have a drive-through because usually my qualifier is that you have to have a drive-through in order to be considered fast food. But it's not fast at Panera. Not. Can I say that real quick? Yeah. Like nothing against Panera or St. Louis Breadco. It's not fast.
It's not waiting in a little bin like at McDonald's or Burger King or Chick-fil-A or whatever. In Chick-fil-A, do they have it? Or like if you order a number 1, it's already made, right? And
It's right there.
Yeah.
Yes, they're efficient. DC3 or DC3, newsflash, Brooke, Longhorns don't have a Zaxby's. Then they don't belong in the SEC. I don't want them
There
to be in
you
the
go.
SEC.
Thank you.
By the way, UT is
Hold on
the
a second.
original
Hold on a
UT
second.
and
Matthew.
not Texas.
Panera's not great anymore. But yeah, first of all, I'm with Brooke on that one. Horns down forever. Panera's not great, but I mean, you order at the drive-thru, you go to the window, and you get your food just as quickly as at a lot of fast food restaurants.
So they make it fast. I guess my question would be: is it already wrapped? Subway though. Subway's fast food, right?
I don't
okay.
put sub, personally.
So here's
I
the thing.
don't.
I
put
worked at
Subway in
Panera
my
for a
fast
little
food
bit.
category.
I worked at Panera for a little bit, and so I don't think this is violating the NDA parts, which is if you go there before like the end of the day when everything's out, they do have to make it fresh. A lot of the sandwiches will be pre-made so that during rush, they can just pull the sandwich out, put it on the panini maker, grill it up, and then it's quick. So there's a little pre-make, but it's never like pre-cooked. It's always cold in a fridge somewhere, and then it gets pulled out and thrown onto the panini press or something like that.
Top five. So top 5 fast food.
And this
chains.
is your favorite 5.
Okay, so for me, Chick-fil-A always number 1. Worked there. They have the best food safety protocol ever. I learned so much working from Chick-fil-A, just so that everybody feels better about that, about their food safety. And I don't work there anymore. So if you care about your food safety even more, then there you go. But McDonald's, which I know people think has gone down in quality, their fries are always top tier to me. Their Sprite is spicy. I love it. There's just
good.
something different about it,
I
right?
like McDonald's.
And then after that, a lot of the fast food
Wendy's?
chains have like dropped off for me. I had Wendy's the other day. I didn't like it.
I like Wendy's.
I feel like Wendy's
my
has
problem
gone
with-
down.
I've always gone to McDonald's because of the Coke has always been elite as well as the Sprite.
Yeah.
But I had the Coke like twice in this last month, and something happened to McDonald's Coke. Like Chick-fil-A's is so much better now. It used to be kind of running dead heat, but Chick-fil-A is like so far and away the elite drive-through Coca-Cola. It's not even funny anymore.
Sonic. And I said Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Sonic. I like Sonic. And they have a drive-through, so it qualifies for me.
Yep.
I think Raising Cane's is pretty good. It's not my favorite, but I like Raising Cane's. So that's like a newer one for me. And then the 5th one is where I'm struggling. Oh, Taco Bell. What am I talking about? Has the quality gone down?
Go.
Yes, but Taco Bell has always been a favorite of mine for sure.
Okay. Matthew, your top 5.
Okay. I'll still throw McDonald's in there because the fries are elite. I will. God, that's a tough one, man. Because like to Brooke's point, I'm getting older, and so a lot of them are kind of rough. Like Taco Bell's not in my top 5 anymore. I'm gonna go with Wendy's.
I agree.
Even though they use the terrible Coke machine, so their beverages are just terrible. But Frosties are great.
Has anybody ever had a McDonald's shake, by the way?
No.
I don't even waste time to ask for it. Yeah, I'm not wasting the breath on that. There's no chance the machine works. So McDonald's, Wendy's, and I will go ahead and say Whataburger, even though it's not in town right now. Popeyes, and I'll go with Jack in the Box for my 5th one.
Okay. I'm pretty close to you guys. I'm Chick-fil-A number 1, Taco Bell number 2, McDonald's, Panda Express. I love Panda.
But they don't have a drive-thru.
Yes, they do. Mine
Do
does.
they?
In
They do.
Crestmore, yeah.
Really?
The one down in Hampton does too.
Yeah.
Oh, does it? I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
And then have you guys had Culver's?
People drive like
Yes.
Culver's is so good, Randy. That's a great. You know what? I'm gonna put Culver's instead of Rally's. I'm stealing that from Wendy's because Culver's is so good.
Okay. And Wilson's got. What do we got here for you, Wilson?
Well, for me, I'm probably gonna go a little bit where Rockio went of McDonald's, Popeyes. Let's see, Whataburger because of my deep Texas ties. I'll probably say Cane's and then Chick-fil-A. I'm a big chicken guy, so yeah, those would be my top 5.
I think those are all. Chick-fil-A is going to be a big one forever and always. That one.
That's
I
good for
made a
them.
mistake the other day because the Manchester one is not available yet.
No.
And that angers me every time I see it,
Text
Randy.
our guy.
And so I made the mistake of going to the Sunset Hills one the other day. That has to be like the busiest Chick-fil-A.
Really?
I don't know what is going on over there, or if it's just like pour over because Manchester's not open. But the Sunset Hills one was packed, and it took forever. I mean, they were efficient, so I'm not saying anything against Sunset Hills Chick-fil-A, but I mean, it was slammed, and it wasn't like in a great area to like get in and out of.
So that's interesting because
No, it's not a great area to get in.
Go ahead, Matthew.
It's a bad area to get in and out of. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Like Chick-fil-A's got to have big parking lots, or it spills out onto the street, and that creates a lot of issues. Like the Panda Express down in Hampton, it's got a drive-through, but it spills out onto Hampton, and now Hampton at that point is only one lane each way, so it spills out onto Hampton and causes just the most annoying little traffic jams right there in Hampton. It's so stupid.
Okay, there is STL Sports Grub here on STL Sports Hub and
Sports Grub STL. Come on, Randy.
Sports Grub STL. There you go. DraftKings Sportsbook brings you the Randy Karraker Show and Sports Hub STL. The crown is yours. Anything else you'd like to add, Brooke?
No.
Okay.
It was rainy. It's been rainy.
I watched a lot of TV this weekend.
I watched Last of Us season 2 last night, episode. Season 2, episode 2. Terrible. I was crushed. Don't watch it if you want to be sad.
Don't watch it. Watch Blues tonight. We'll be talking Blues and Cardinals tomorrow. Matthew?
Yes, I want to get one final take from you guys because we mentioned the lines earlier. Jeremy Rutherford just tweeted out a response on flipping neighbors and putting Snuggerud on that top line. That's going to be a switch. Just sometimes as a coach, you have to have a feel that this will hopefully create a little more offense and give us better defensive positioning with our top two lines. So in your guys' opinion, flipping neighbors and Snuggerud on the top two lines, is that enough of a game changer? Do the Blues get a steal against Winnipeg tonight?
They do win the game, but it's not because of the line changes. It's just because those guys play better.
Yeah, I think so. I don't have an issue as much with the line changes as much. Do you?
No, that's fine.
No, I think it's fine.
Yeah,
and by the way,
professionals.
DC3, did Texas baseball win a national championship last year? How did Texas basketball? Did they finish further than Tennessee basketball last year? I just want to.
There was a team that won Orange, I think, that won the national championship.
Yeah,
if I'm not
but
mistaken.
We're not doing this. We're not doing any UT measuring here. This is not the place for that. Get out of here. God, horns down. Checkerboard's overrated, even though it's beautiful.
We'll be back at it tomorrow. Have a magnificent Monday, and don't forget, we have pregame and postgame Cards Up 365 here on Sports Hub STL.